Good morning, everyone. So lovely to see all of you. See some faces I haven't seen for a while. Welcome back, Yoshi. And others too. It's really just a pleasure to be able to be up here and to see all of you at once. I think everybody should have the experience of coming up here and seeing all their brothers and sisters and community members at the same time. Today, we're beginning a new sermon series. It's been a while since we've done a series, but our series that we'll be going into over the next month or so is on deepening relationships. And I think that, we gave several messages at the beginning of the year on what kind of attitude we want to start the new year with, what kind of goals we want to have. But I think we can't really make a plan or be excited about the new year or expect to have anything really real or substantial if it doesn't include something about deepening our relationships. So I just want to start with a quote from the Bible to begin with. This is 1 John 4, verse 7 through 8. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. And whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. I think this kind of sets the stage for deepening our relationships. So in our series, we're going to be going into, why is it important to deepen our relationships? Of course, it sounds like a good thing, but it's, is it optional? Can I have a good life without deepening my relationships and just kind of continuing where I'm at right now? What does our life look like over time if we do or don't work on our relationships? And this brought me to a study, and I think I've heard of it before, so it might be familiar to some of you as well. But there was, actually it's not a study, it's a reflection. There's a book written by a palliative nurse in Australia. Her name is Bronnie Ware. And she worked for 12 years with patients as they came to the end of their life. But rather than just taking care of their physical needs, changing their diapers, giving them their medication, whatever it is that she needed to do, she also was really curious about what was the experience like at the end of her life. She was a younger lady at the time, but she was really curious, what is your experience of life at this point? And as she talked with them, there were 5 common themes that came up throughout all of her conversations. And she wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I'll tell you, the first top regret wasn't, I wish I had made more money in my life. Somebody wrote, it wasn't even, I wish I'd had more sex. Or, I wish I had a bigger house. These are not the regrets that people express at the end of their life. And before I share them, one thing that she did say, she said that as she walked people through the last several weeks of their life, there was also a common thing. There was denial, there was anger, frustration, sadness, denial again, and then acceptance. But she said there wasn't one person who didn't come to that point of acceptance before passing, at least in this like hospice type of environment where you have time, So I'm going to be talking about regrets, but I also want to say that that's not it, that there is also acceptance and grace that people experienced at the end of their life. But the top 5 regrets at the end of people's life. The first one, and she said this was the most common theme. I wish I had lived a life true to myself. not the life others expected of me. I wish I had lived a life true to myself. I'm sorry, I should have put these on a slide so that you could read it as well. But I'll just say them several times. I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not the life others expected of me. People felt that they had spent a lot of time trying to please other people or live up to other people's expectations without even taking the time to discover who they truly were and to live that out. Second regret, and this was especially true for men, but not only to men. I wish I hadn't worked so hard, and I wish I had spent more time with my family. I spent so much time working that I missed the milestones of my children as they grew up. And I was busiest during the ages when they were young and they were at home. And then by the time I realized that they were already gone and had their own families, or I wish I'd taken time to appreciate what my wife has done for me or what my husband has done for me, but I was so focused on getting the next promotion or making the next pay grade. I wish I hadn't worked so hard, and I wish I'd spent more time with my family. The next one, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. That was a little bit of a surprise to me, but it's a theme that came up over and over again. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. She said many people repressed emotions or feelings to try to make others happy while simultaneously building like an emptiness or void inside and resentment. The next one, I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends. Because relationships, while they're intangible, they're actually very real and valuable. So many people expressed, they all fit together a little bit. You know, I was so busy with my work, or I was so busy with my family and just trying to keep everything going that people that I truly loved in my life, people that I grew up with in school or that I went through something with, think of your old MFT days or times when I was in college. I really loved these people at that time, but over time we drifted apart, and I could have made the effort to reconnect, but it just didn't seem important at that time, and then it seems like it was too late. I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends. And the last one, I wish I had let myself be happier. That's interesting too, because I think sometimes we think, well, I'm happy or not depending on what I have or what I don't have, or depending on the situation in my life. But actually, these people were acknowledging at the end of their life that happiness is a choice, that it didn't actually require accomplishment or running after things or attaining a certain number of things. Is that I wish I'd let myself be happier with the life that I had. So these are the top 5 regrets. I wish I'd live a life true to myself. I wish I hadn't worked so hard and spent more time with my family. I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with friends, and I wish I had let myself be happier, because happiness is a choice. So what I notice about all of these top 5 things is that they actually all revolve around relationships. Some of them with others, but actually many of them revolve around my relationship with myself. Something that I've noticed over time and with people that I know, and as I watch people that I know and close to from childhood get older, is that there's kind of a shift towards the end of people's lives. That elderly people, as they get more elderly, they tend to either become a little bit more bitter or sad about their life, or there's like frustration. Or they tend to become more light. They kind of let go and more grateful, more optimistic, more appreciative of whatever it is that they have. I was just thinking about my mother's mom, my grandmother. She passed away about 12 years ago, and she was 90-something. And I had an uncle, my dad's brother, and he passed away fairly young, in his 50s, and he actually lived in our home with our family for the last 8 years of his life. And they had very, very different lives in many respects. My grandmother came from a wealthy family. She lived to be very old. She had a large, children and grandchildren. My uncle had been in Vietnam, and his parents had passed away when he was young. He'd never had any children of his own. However, there are some very similar themes that went through their life as well. They both really had difficulties in their marriages and ended up getting divorced. And both of them, one of my uncles struggled himself personally with alcohol, and my grandmother's husband had struggled intensely with alcohol, and she herself had gone through the Alcoholics Anonymous process over many, many years to deal with all of the things that came along with that. So from one perspective, their lives are very, very different, but from another perspective, the kind of things that really matter to us, the struggles that we really face in our relationships, addictions, things like that, they're very similar. And I want to say this up front, I love my grandmother and my uncle a lot. My uncle, though, was very frustrated through the end of his life. Felt life was very unfair, and expressed a lot of that towards the government, towards his ex-wife, just in a general kind of attitude and way of being. And I love my uncle, and I know that God also loves my uncle. But there's a place that he kind of ended up at the end of his life. And my grandmother, on the other hand, at her funeral services, the pastor at the Congregational Church that she attended for many, many years, she got up there and she said, "I have a confession to make. This lady was better than me." She shared a story of how this pastor lady was driving my grandmother around one day, and some driver cut them off and seemed really rude, and the pastor was like, "What are you doing? Can't you see I'm driving here?" And she drove past, my grandmother smiled and waved, "Have a good day," So this lady was better than me, because this attitude just prevailed in any situation of well wishes and gratitude and a positive attitude through everything. But how do we get there? I think that I pointed out that there's kind of a tendency that people tend to go to one or the other as they get older, and that's probably recognizable to you too. But if we just think about me right now, I'm sure most of us think, "Oh, I won't become that bitter, old, resentful person." Certainly not. Or if I look out here, I can't say, "Oh, you're definitely going to be this type of person," or, "Oh no, this person could never become bitter or resentful. They're too sweet and kind." It's not so obvious. I think it's really a question of what's going on inside of us. And it comes down to our relationship with ourselves and our relationship with God. So throughout this series, we'll spend at least 1 week talking about each different type of relationship. Relationship with our parents, relationship with our siblings, relationship with our spouse, relationship with our children. But today I want to be focusing about the relationship that all of the rest of these kind of stem from or depend on, and that is our relationship with God and our relationship with ourselves. Definitely, our relationships with others will largely rest on how I relate to myself. You know, am I confident in myself? Am I comfortable in my own skin? Do I worry about what other people think about me? Do I like myself? You can bet a relationship with a spouse will be very influenced by how I answer these questions. The way that we relate to our children, the way we educate our children will be heavily influenced by the way I answer these questions. And it's kind of a thing right now in popular culture. You might recognize some of these phrases. You do you. You're perfect just the way you are, perfectly imperfect. You know, be confident in yourself. There's a lot of that kind of messaging. And it's true, and it's not true. It's like, yes, but also there's something missing there. I actually have some friends who are constantly sharing these type of posts on Facebook, meant to be very uplifting and inspiring and empowering. But I know these people in real life. The people who share these the most are often the most struggling people. One of them often hosts like self-love retreats, but then, you know, behind the scenes she's like, "Oh, I hate my life." So many times these people are the most insecure, or these are the people posting beautiful pictures of themselves on Facebook, looking for validation from others. So self-love and confidence can't come by just surrounding yourself with these phrases, by telling yourself that it's so, or by reading a post online. Oh, so it must be true. This person said it, so it must be true. Of course, I'm perfectly imperfect, and I don't need to do anything except for be myself because I'm great just the way I am. And self-love and confidence don't come by just trying to ignore our mistakes or our memories of failure and pretending they don't exist either. What it comes down to is we can't generate this on our own. I can't generate true self-love and confidence just by myself. A relationship with ourself centered only on myself, it really can't be wholesome. It has to be rooted in our origin. Our parent. We can develop a true relationship with ourselves when we know where we came from, who we were created to be, and if we know that our origin is love. So that brings me back to the quote I already shared. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is from God. I am also from God. And whoever loves has been born of God and knows God. Anyone who does not love does not know God, because God is love. Here's another quote from 1 John 3:1. See what kind of love the Father has given to us, that we should be called children of God. And so we are. The reason why the world does not know us is that it did not know him. So the reason why we're lacking in love, or that we don't treat each other with love, or that I don't see myself with love, or that it's not real to me, maybe I don't know God enough. This is a quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. "You cannot measure my deep love for God. When I reflect on my heart toward God, it is as if the cells of my body get electrified. Can you understand that I am walking a path of filial piety toward God with such 심장?" And 심장 is a Korean word that means heart, or the irrepressible desire to give and receive love. I want to learn about God from somebody who feels about God like this. I'll share a quick story. When I was on my missions program for several years in between high school and college, I had a little bit of a sobering moment. I realized that many of my friends that I had grown up with, people that I really loved and felt close to, family members, were kind of drifting away from God in their lifestyle, but also just in the words that they said and the things that they professed. And I couldn't understand why, but I also had this fear growing inside myself, because I know that I'm not anything special. If I look at this person, I don't see a difference between them and me. So what's to stop me from doing the same thing? And I was talking with my mentor about this, and I asked a question that was something along the lines of, how can I know without a doubt that I won't leave God too? And this was the best part. He didn't give me an answer. Instead, he asked me a question, which is actually just a quick plug for our school. I love the school that we've started, because we're not answering questions to these young people. We're asking the right questions so they can find their own answers. He asked me a question. He said, okay, what would you have to have that would separate you from these other people? What would make the difference for you so that you would feel like you could never leave God? And I was like, well, I was hoping you were just going to tell me. But because he asked me, I had to really think. I probably spent 3 or 4 minutes. But it actually didn't take me that long. I just had to look really deep. And the answer that I came up with was, you know what? I think that if I knew without a doubt that God is really my Father, and I am really God's child, like if that was a real relationship to me, then I would never leave God. I can't leave my parents. I can't pretend my parents don't exist. So if I can find it deep enough in myself to know that God is my parent and I am God's child, then I don't have to worry. So I made it my goal for the next 3 or 4 months. Every day we made an internal goal and an external goal. And every day my internal goal was to develop my filial heart toward God. Lost myself. So this relationship with God is really where, and I have to say, I think that it was from that point that I really began to care less about also what external result I made, or about how my experiences compared to somebody else's experiences that day, or about what other people thought about me, because I wasn't thinking about other people. I was focusing on my origin. I was focusing on my parent. And I believe that out of that, and over time, that I've developed a level of confidence and belief in myself, and empowerment. And I won't say that I am that way in every situation. Mike knows. There are days when I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I think I've made some starting a school. Who do I think I am? No, that I won't say that I'm always confident, but overall, I am a very different person than I was before that period of time in my life. So, what is the root of the universe? Parents and children. Parents and I. The father-son relationship is the foundation of the universe. God is the Father and I am the Son. Sons and daughters. The last foundation is the father-son relationship, and the last goal is also the same. That is why we must find it. We cannot go through our life expecting to be satisfied and fulfilled and joyful without finding this parent-child relationship with God. The basic rules are that the father should order his son, but when the son calls, "Father, please come here," he cannot but go. Even if a 2-year-old daughter calls, "Daddy, come here," he has to go. So I put this in here to remind us that this parent-son or parent-child relationship is not it's not as formal as maybe we think our relationship with God should be. We can be little children to God too. I read this story online, and I'm pretty sure it's entirely made up, but I like it anyway, so I'm going to share it. And it's a story about a hummingbird in a forest, and the forest has caught fire, and it's burning. And the animals are running away from the forest, the elephants with their big trunks and the jaguars. But the hummingbird says, "This is my home. I have to save it." And so the hummingbird goes to the river and picks up a drop of water and drops it on the fire and zips back to the river and, drop by drop, trying to extinguish a forest fire. And the other animals are like, "What are you doing? This is obviously not going to work." But the hummingbird's like, "No, this is my home. I have to do what I can." And so the forest spirits see the hummingbird and take pity on it and send a great rainstorm and put out the fire. It's a silly little story. But at the same time, I feel like this is exactly how God sees us. Many times we feel like we're so insignificant, or I'm not capable, or there's no way I can make a difference in the world. I'm just one. I can only do one drop at a time. But what kind of heart do we show? Because that's what God is looking for. God is looking for an offering of heart. It doesn't matter how many drops of water or how much money goes in the offering basket. It's what heart do I show to God? Because that will move God to action. And it's the same with your small child, I feel like a lot of times, oh my gosh, when you have toddlers, it's this way all the time. You're like, "I can't reach this." And so you pick up the child and you help them to reach it. They're always trying to do things that they are not yet capable of. But the parent does say, "Oh, well, you can't do it." We find a way to work it so that the child can accomplish the task that they're setting out to do. And God is no different. We're like his little children who are trying to do big things in the world. And if we give up, then God will say, "Okay, well, I can't help you." But if we show our heart to God, what we want to do, and we make the effort to do that, even if it may not seem possible, or we don't have the capabilities, or we don't always have the strength, when God sees our effort, he will carry it further than we think we could. That is how I really see the parent-child relationship. And that is where our confidence can come from. My belief in myself, my relationship with myself can't come from my own capabilities or my own intelligence, my own accomplishments. My confidence in who I am and what I'm capable of actually comes from my relationship with my origin, my heavenly parent. So this is where it all starts. I'm really excited to go into talking about parent-child relationship with our own physical parents, with our children, with our siblings. Those relationships are still important, even if they may not, maybe you're all grown up, maybe you're living on other sides of the country or the world. Those are important too. However, it would be very difficult to make real substantial changes or to deepen these relationships without first rooting ourselves in God and knowing our worth and our value based on our relationship with God. So I hope that you can take some time this week to maybe strengthen that bond with God, talk to God a little bit more, remember who God created us to be, and then we'll take it out from there. So please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you for today. Thank you for being our good Father. You are love, and you want to share that with us. You want to be part of our life. You want to be part of our activities. You want to take the efforts that we make and multiply them to this world, Heavenly Parent. Many times I think we just get stuck because we forget about you. We just try to do things on our own, or we don't believe that we can do things on our own, so we don't even try. But God, you are really our loving parent. And sometimes children go astray for a little bit, and we forget that we forget that you exist, or we don't believe that you still love us. But a parent loves their child so unconditionally, Heavenly Parent. So I pray we can always remind ourselves of that. And if we are straying a little bit from the path, that we can come back to you, because we'll be welcomed with open arms, Heavenly Parent. We love you. Thank you so much for your love for us. And I pray that we can find strength in that. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, a blessed family. Amen and adieu. Thank you.